The Gold Rush is designed to keep wind drag to an absolute minimum. At his workshop, Gardner Martin, one of the designers and builders, said the success is due to Freddie and to the streamlined design.
The actual shape of this body is based on some studies done in Germany in World War II for underwater torpedoes. It's the same thing in the water or the air. We're trying to split the air apart very smoothly and put it back together as smoothly as possible.
So you're trying to slip through the air really without it noticing.
That's right. Put it back together and the air hardly knows that we've penetrated it.
Well, that's a good theory, but what did you do to prove that? I mean, how did you develop that?
Well, to prove what would work, we simulated wind tunnel tests by actually taking the machine out on the road and attaching little tufts of yarn all over the body as little tattletales to show which way the wind is blowing. If the little tattletales are pointing down or up instead of straight back, we know the air is flowing turbulent in the wrong direction, and that's causing drag.
All right, well, can we take a look at what's inside, at the bicycle that's inside?
Sure. We'll just start taking it apart here.
Okay.
This is where he climbs into the bicycle.
That's not much of an opening.
No, well, Freddie's not very big. He's built really compact and powerful, and we've tailored the size of the streamlined shell just to give Fred enough room to pedal. Again, to reduce the overall size, to decrease the wind resistance.
Freddie must sit hunched over with his shoulders pressed against the inside of the shell. There's little clearance around the handlebars, so steering requires great skill and delicate balance. But what Freddie sacrifices for comfort, the Gold Rush gains in speed.
We'll just pull the shell off. You get the front and I'll get the rear.
What am I going to do here? Just lift it off?
Just lift it right up.
Oh,
We'll set it over here.
The design of the chassis for the Gold Rush was very similar to the recumbent bike that I rode, but a lot of modifications were made to enhance the aerodynamics. Besides weight considerations, wind drag was again a major factor. The wheels are designed with a mylar covering.
All those spokes are spinning very fast at speed, and they're beating up the wind just like a little fan. So by covering the spokes, we almost totally reduce the wind drag on that wheel.
The gears are specially designed to handle high speeds.
Yeah, we do have to gear it up a lot higher. We use a gear that's twice as big as a regular racing gear because the bike's designed to go about twice as fast.
So instead of Freddie having to go twice as fast with his feet, you put on a gear that's twice as big.
That's right, and that'll keep Fred pumping at his optimum RPM.
To take full advantage of Fred's optimum RPMs, runs for the speed record are always done in the mountains.
At 8,000 feet, the air is only 2/3 as thick as it is at sea level, so we're able to go faster because of less air resistance. Probably gave him 2 miles an hour, maybe 3 miles an hour extra speed running at high altitude.
Just so we could see the principles of aerodynamics at work for ourselves, Gardner set up a challenge race, the Gold Rush against a 4-man pursuit team.
And they're going to be working together, one man following behind the next man to cut their wind drag, just like the race cars do. They follow in each other's draft. And the lead man will switch off about every lap with another man so that he doesn't have to break the wind all by himself all the time. So they'll be able to go faster by doing that. Their bikes are also geared lower, so they'll be able to jump out at the start. So Freddie's going to have to chase them on the first lap. But I do think Freddie will catch them, and he will pass them maybe 2 or 3 times.
So you think the aerodynamics really are going to make the difference?
Yes, in the end, the aerodynamics will prove out the winner.
All right, well, let's see.
After a lap and a half, it was very clear that Gardner's prediction would come true. It's clearly aerodynamics that wins in the end. And that pretty much says it all. The gold rush in action says the rest.
A few years ago, I had the chance to learn how to be a whale keeper at the Minnesota Zoo. Our resident naturalist, Nancy Gibson, showed me the ropes as we put the zoo's two beluga whales, Big Mouth and Little Girl, through their paces.
Send them on out.
Hey, look at that.
Now you take this pole here. That's called
Grab
their
the
target.
pole. Yeah.
And put it about the center of the pool. A little
Gee,
higher.
I feel like a real keeper
little
here.
higher, little
The two
higher.
belugas endeared themselves to Minnesotans during their 10 years at the zoo and became its most popular attraction. Unfortunately, one of the whales became sick. Big Mouth developed stubborn skin ulcerations, followed by other health problems. And despite repeated efforts to cure him, his health did not improve. A decision was made to send the whales to marine experts at SeaWorld in San Diego, California. There are few precedents for treating an ailing beluga, and in each case, new ground must be broken in marine mammal care. Naturalist Nancy Gibson traveled to SeaWorld to visit her old friends and see how they were getting on in their home away from home.
Come here, old boy. Yeah, come on up and say hi. Hi there. How are you? Hello.
It was wonderful to see them again, and I watched with pleasure as Big Mouth and Little Girl swam lazily around their pool at SeaWorld. Big Mouth seemed better than the last time I'd seen him, and SeaWorld's general curator, Jim Antrim, joined me for a quick update on his current condition.
How is my old friend Big Mouth doing?
Well, Big Mouth's doing very well now. When he first arrived, we went through pretty extensive diagnostic work trying to determine the extent of the osteomyelitis and other problems that he might have. But lately, he's been eating well over 60 pounds a day and looking bright and alert and doing quite well, thanks.
It was good news, but Big Mouth's disfigured jaw was a sad reminder of the health problems that have plagued him over the past 2 years. The trouble began when Big Mouth developed a sore on his lower lip that refused to heal. Over the next 18 months, various combinations of antibiotic pills and salves were tried. A special bandage was even designed to fit Big Mouth's infected lip, but the sore only grew larger. Specialists were called in, batteries of tests were run, and new treatments were tried, with still no success. Finally, in an attempt to prevent the infection from spreading, the tip of Big Mouth's lower jaw was amputated. Shortly after the surgery, however, other lesions began to grow on the rest of his body. A second surgery was performed to remove these sores. Big Mouth was later diagnosed as having osteomyelitis, a progressive and serious bone disease. A cure could not be found, and Big Mouth's health continued to deteriorate. Zoo officials feared that if something drastic was not done, Big Mouth would die. The decision was made to send Big Mouth to SeaWorld in San Diego, a facility renowned for its marine mammal research and expertise. And because she becomes distraught without her mate, Little Girl traveled with him. Transporting a whale is no easy task, and the staffs of both the Minnesota Zoo and SeaWorld worked out every detail. Soon, Big Mouth and Little Girl were investigating their new home under the watchful eye of SeaWorld staff members. For the first 2 weeks, Big Mouth ate very little. New blood tests indicated he was also suffering from kidney and respiratory infections, and his prognosis was listed as grave.
You get a sick whale. What's the first step that you do?
Probably the first step that anybody would take, and again, this is similar to what you do with a sick child, a sick human, is find out what the problem is, and that includes a complete diagnostic workup. And you'd probably remove the animal from the pool, or do this in the bottom of the pool, and you take blood samples, you take blowhole cultures, you examine any lesion or wound that might be present, radiographs, x-rays if necessary, and you really have to have a good idea of what you're fighting or what you're up against.
What is his main affliction? Is it now osteomyelitis? Or is it the kidney disease? Is it the respiratory disease we've heard about?
From what I understand, the osteomyelitis, the bone infection, if you will, has been pretty well arrested, and this is determination made on the analysis, some x-rays that were taken here recently. Actually, they've been taking a continuous series over a period of time. Again, referring to the veterinarians that have been treating the case, they seem to be more concerned recently over kidney problems as well as some respiratory problems.
Regular blood testing and other lab work is being done to detect any developing health problems. This also helps determine the status of the illnesses he already had. As a result of these tests, antibiotics have been prescribed and are being administered to Big Mouth through his daily feedings. Slowly, Big Mouth's health has begun to improve. His appetite has increased and the lesions on his body have begun to heal. The natural seawater SeaWorld has access to has been credited with remarkable healing power.
Mother Nature puts a lot of fine ingredients, trace elements and things like that in seawater that perhaps some artificial systems do not include. And probably there's I don't know the formula of the makeup or the composition of the water that Big Mouth was in before, but we do have the luxury of having natural seawater here for him.
Later, Jim and I donned rubber boots and grabbed buckets of fish to give Big Mouth and Little Girl their lunch. Not only was Big Mouth eating well, Little Girl was far from showing any loss of appetite.
Looks like she's put on a little bit of weight since she's arrived here.
Well, since she's been down here, she's put on, I think, between 150, almost 200 pounds, and he's doing quite well also.
Now, will his affliction with his jaw, the fact he doesn't have all of it, will that affect the way he eats
Well,
food?
you can see that, you know, his tongue still works normally there, and he just swallows the fish right down, so I don't think it hampers him one bit.
He certainly looks chipper and seeming to respond real well to the feeding here.
Well, he's easily taking 60 pounds of fish a day, and he'd take more than that and putting on some weight. And like I say, we're just pleased as punch with him. Aren't we, big guy?
Yeah.
SeaWorld has gained valuable knowledge of marine mammal illness and treatment through experiences like this one with Big Mouth. Future applications of this knowledge may help save the life of another ailing whale. Today, Big Mouth shows every sign of continuing his dramatic recovery. There was no single drug or treatment responsible for Big Mouth's improvement. It was more likely a combination of fresh seawater, antibiotics, luck, and according to SeaWorld, an animal with a tremendous will to live.